What's up, guys? What's up, world? What's up, everybody tuning in? Welcome back to the Win on Purpose podcast. I appreciate you guys, as always, for joining us for another episode, taking time out of your day to listen to what I have to say and what we believe here at Transformed Health Initiative. We are in Moore, Oklahoma. So if you're looking for a great gym to work with trainers one-on-one, maybe you don't like the big gym setting, maybe it's uncomfortable, maybe you don't want to feel like you don't know what you're doing, or have to work around people, or have to worry about parking, or anything else that comes with the big box gym experience, and you're wanting a more private, secluded, get in, get your work done, and get out type environment with experts who know exactly what they're doing, know exactly how to help you get to your goal. We would love to work with you guys. So you can sign up for a consultation for absolutely nothing on our website, www.transformedhealthcoach.com, or you can reach out to me on any of our social media platforms, the Transformed Health Initiative, Facebook, Instagram, or my own personal Facebook and Instagram, Coach Adam Kelly, or you can reach out to Coach Nick Kelly, Nicholas Kelly, or King Kelly on Instagram if you would like to sign up. Lots of ways that you can get plugged in, guys, but we would love to work with you, help you crush your goals, help you feel your best, help you move your best, and help you look your best. All right, so if you don't mind, we got to do our housekeeping because we have no sponsors to the podcast. The only sponsor that we have is our very own Transform Health Initiative. So if you guys don't mind, please drop us, a good review rating on whatever platform you're listening to or watching on. If you're watching the actual video, you can watch the video on YouTube if you want to actually see my face, but it's not that exciting. I promise you're not really missing anything. But if you're more of like a visual and audio learner, then you can watch the video, the live stream. Well, I guess it technically wouldn't be live for you, but you can watch that on YouTube. So with all that being said, guys, I'd appreciate the love and the help, helping us share this message, helping us get the podcast out there so we can help as many people as possible and truly have a lasting impact on our society and on our community as a whole. All right, so what are we doing here today, guys? This is part 4 of our series that we've been doing over this month of January 2025, that is. And the series is called Let's Talk Macros, okay? So let me kind of recap a little bit to let you know where we're at, fill you in, a little bit of a reminder, because this is once a week we drop one of these episodes. Or maybe, you're someone like me who doesn't have the patience to go to the beginning of something and you're just picking up on this episode. Well, you're going to be a little bit lost if you don't know what we've done before. So we started out with part 1 where we gave an overview of what macronutrients are, what those look like, protein, carbs, fats, how many calories are, in each gram of these macronutrients, how they're beneficial for you, just kind of a broad overview. And then episode 2 and 3, we broke down in detail protein and carbohydrates, why it's beneficial for you, what it is, in general first, why it's good for you, some good food sources to get it from, and also in the carbohydrate episode, we went through some misconceptions that have been believed throughout time, especially within the last decade or so of the, low carb diet fads that have been exploding everywhere. And, we need to dispel some of the misconceptions and just some of the downright false information when it comes to any macronutrient, because same thing with dietary fat. Lots of things have been demonized throughout the years. Lots of things have been claimed to be destroying our health. And most of it, if not all of it, is not true when you actually look at the randomized controlled trials in human beings where we're actually studying humans and what these things have an effect on them in real life. And we don't see a lot of that. So we want to make sure that we're well educated, that we have a very good understanding of what we're putting in our body, why we're putting in our body, and why we need to make sure that we are getting in adequate amounts, because it's going to help us feel better and look better and move better all the way around. All right. So this episode, is part 4 of our series. We're covering the last macronutrient, which is fat. All right. We are covering dietary fat. So I call it dietary fat, and I'm going to give a little bit of a definition, if you will, of what fat is, dietary fat. But I always try to specify the difference between dietary fat and body fat. So it's not the same thing, guys. Completely different. One of them is good for us. Well, actually, technically, both of them are good for us because body fat is not a bad thing when it's under control. When you don't have excessive amounts, body fat is vital for our existence and for continuing to live, for hormone production, for a lot of different things we're going to see. However, excess body fat is a bad thing. All right. So, what is dietary fat? Let's look at this. Let's break it down, guys. So, dietary fat, not to be confused with adipose tissue, aka body fat, is a nutrient that is essential to the human body. All right. We have to have fat. All right. It is vital for the absorption of vitamins A, D, E, and K. All right, these are what's called fat-soluble vitamins. It is a precursor to many hormones. So, for example, our sex hormones. It is a great energy source for the body. It is also important for optimal skin and healthy hair, so hair health. In the form of body fat, it keeps the body insulated and protects vital organs. So those are a couple of reasons why we want to have a healthy amount of body fat. And also our hormone production is very important. We don't want our hormones being all thrown off because we think cutting out all of our fats is going to make dieting easier. We want to make sure that we have a healthy amount because, here at Transform Health Initiative, we like to promote overall health, not just what's popular, not what's trendy, not what's sexy, not what's what everyone's talking about, not what worked for Sally or Joe, but we want to promote optimal health through a balanced diet, which includes all 3 macronutrients. So no cutting out complete macronutrients. It's not a very good idea. Definitely don't recommend it outside of specific circumstances that directly tie into health. So if you have some sort of disease that is affected by a certain macronutrient, then that's a different story that you need to be going over with your physician, making sure that you're good there. Outside of that, just for a typical person looking to lead a healthy lifestyle, you should not be cutting out any of the macronutrients, all right? So some really good sources of dietary fat. So as you know, you may not know, this is why you're here, there are different types of dietary fat, okay? It's not just one type of fat. A lot of us have heard of saturated fats because that's been talked about a lot in the media, either being demonized, or being highly promoted through some of these fad diets. So many of you have heard of saturated fats, but there's multiple other types of fats that we need to be aware of because a couple of these we do know through studies that they are harmful to our health, but then the rest of them, within the context of calorie control and a healthy lifestyle, we don't see any problems with, and actually they promote good health. So number 1, saturated fats. What are some good sources for saturated fats? We have animal products. So that'd be, beef, chicken, all the different types of animals. The fat that they contain is primarily saturated fat. Fish would be another example of that. And then things like coconuts and coconut oil, another great source of saturated fats. Unsaturated fats, this is another type of fat. Olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds, those are really good options for unsaturated fat. Monounsaturated fats, once again, olives, olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds. So those options cover multiple different types of fats that we need. And then omegas, great sources, salmon, or a lot of your fishes, mackerels, oysters, sardines, walnuts, cod liver oil. So a lot of your water animals, typically a good place to get omega-3s from. And we want to try to avoid polyunsaturated and trans fats, okay? Now, there's been a lot more research done on polyunsaturated fats. This is going to be like your seed oils. I'm not necessarily against these anymore. I used to be, because again, it was popular. And when it was first coming out, when people first started really talking about seed oils, they made them out to be like these terrible things that are killing our health. But again, once you look at studies in actual human beings that are controlled studies, that are well conducted without leaning towards any specific bias, we see that these seed oils and these type of polyunsaturated fats don't actually show negative health effects. And actually, a lot of the studies, we see a positive health effect from switching out polyunsaturated fats in place of some of the saturated fats in our diet. So interesting things there, guys. It's kind of a subject for a different day because that can be very controversial, especially in today's social media age where, everybody's promoting their diet plan or their supplements or whatever, and they're going to pick on one specific thing and demonize it based on studies that weren't well conducted, or they were cherry picked, or just the studies that they're supposedly quoting actually say the exact opposite, which, believe it or not, I've seen and heard that many, many times of someone quoting a study, or, there's a study that says, and then the show notes, they give example of that study, but how many people actually click and read that study is so minuscule, they can get away with it, because a lot of these times when you go to that study and look at what the results are and the conclusion from the people conducting the study, it says the exact opposite of what people are claiming that it does. But they bank off of our ignorance and our lack of understanding and our, let's just call it what it is, laziness to actually investigate something, and we just hear something and say, oh, that must sound true because this person sounds like they know what they're talking about, or they have a certain initials behind their name, or they look really good, they look how I want to look, or whatever reason that we decide to justify what people are saying without actually looking into it ourselves. Very, very common to happen. So there's that. Like I said, that's a subject for another day when it comes to seed oils and all that, but at least you know about them. And obviously polyunsaturated fats are going to be, like I said, a lot of your seed oils. So canola oil, vegetable oil, things like that. That's where you can get some quality sources there. So we're going to look at 10 benefits of adequate dietary fat. And as I've said in previous episodes, all this information that I'm providing you guys, this is information that I provide all of my clients when they first sign up. So when you walk out after your first appointment, you walk out with a folder full of print-offs of not just information about macronutrients, but micronutrients, sleep, how to set up your diet, how to set up your food environment, what a example meal plan would look like, a food selection list to kind of guide you at the grocery store, especially as you're new to paying attention to what you're eating and trying to choose healthier options and things like that. So I provide you guys with ample support right out of the gate where you can actually take this information home. So you're not trying to remember 1,000 things that Coach AK tells you on your first appointment, but you actually leave empowered with information that you can look at whenever you want, however often as you want, until you really get it down and have a very good understanding. All right. So as far as the podcast goes, let's look at the 10 benefits of adequate dietary fat. So number one, it's important for cell structure. Okay. A lot of our cell structure is made from lipids or fats. That's like the scientific name of what fat breaks down into, lipids. Number two, helps calcium enter into bone for bone strength. So we know that fats can be transporter molecules, and certain vitamins are only absorbed when they're absorbed with fats. All right, that would be that fat soluble vitamin. All right, or fat soluble vitamins. All right, number three, helps guard the liver from alcohol and other toxins such as Tylenol. Number four, helps improve cardiovascular risk factors. So there are a few studies that I've seen that show long-term saturated fat consumption can actually harm the cardiovascular system. That is definitely one that is highly debated. And I would say the studies look like it backs that idea, but I think there's a lot of unanswered questions as far as what people are eating with the saturated fat, if they're reporting how much they're consuming and it's actually accurate. A few different reasons why I would say if you're eating a healthy, balanced diet, you're not just like drinking butter and blending up bacon into your protein shake, I wouldn't be too worried about it. But if anything you overconsume can have a negative effect, no doubt. Let's see, number five, makes up the majority of brain tissue, along with cholesterol. So that's pretty cool there. Your brain is fat, all right. Number 6, helps provide proper nerve signaling, okay? So our nerves depend on fats for that purpose. Number 7, benefits insulin levels and blood sugar control, all right? So one big reason why this happens is we know that fats slow down digestion, okay? They slow down the digestive process. So if you're consuming it, again, as a well-balanced diet and you have protein and carbs with it, the response of your blood glucose to those carbs can actually be lowered because digestion is slower when you introduce fats with this. So if you're eating a pure carbohydrate, especially a quick digesting carb with no fiber, you're going to absorb a lot of that. It's going to spike your blood sugar. Your body's going to have to do something with that. But when you consume a balanced diet and you have protein, carbs, and fats in your meal, then those fats help slow down the digestion and the breaking down of those carbohydrates and protein. So having less of an acute or short-term blood glucose spike compared to eating carbohydrates just by themselves. Okay, so pretty interesting thing there. And this is why, just side note, you'll never hear me talking about like the glycemic food index of foods or the glycemic food index chart, where basically what that is certain carbohydrates digest at a different rate than others. So something like a white rice or a white potato without the skin on the potato is going to digest extremely fast, going to hit your bloodstream extremely fast. Same thing with like sugar, for example, by itself. And so this is what that chart is based off of which foods cause the highest blood sugar spike, in the short term. So that sounds very interesting, especially for diabetics. Like, oh, wow, okay, if I just avoid these foods and only eat these foods and that, I won't have to deal with my blood sugar spiking. But again, when you mix foods, if you were just eating those foods by themselves, then yes, you would probably see that same effect. But when you mix foods and you're eating protein and fats with your carbohydrates, we see those carbs digest completely different than if they were by themselves. So that's why I say I'm not a big fan of the glycemic food index chart. But if it works for you and it kind of helps you set up a baseline and a guideline, then by all means, whatever works. So moving on from that, number 8, it appears to help reduce inflammation and helps with autoimmune disease improvements, okay? So I only actually have 8 points on this print off. I don't know why it says 10. I must have changed something over time. I've been using this for several years with clients, but I made changes and adaptations to it over time as I've learned more, increased my education. So same thing with the carbohydrate example and things like that. As I learn, I like to update things, because if we're not learning and we're not getting better, no matter how much of an expert we think we are, we're actually shortchanging ourselves and those people that are trusting in us. So as I learn, I update things because I want to give you guys the most practical but also truthful information that I can with what I know at the time, because again, we're human. We only know so much about the body, and we're constantly learning more. So anybody who says that they got it all figured out and that they know everything, that they're the leading expert, and that they're the worst term, which I can't stand, which is guru, you probably ought to run from that person, because they're not even trying to learn more. They're not trying to fine tune their skill set. They're not trying to increase their education level, or how much they know about the topic they're talking about, which means they're going to just continue to stick with the same thing, even if that same thing actually later on is proved to be wrong. They're not going to change because they think they know it all. So be careful with those people. You don't want someone to ruin your health based off of their pride, okay? So anyways, that's a touch on fat. So some recommendations, an easy way to know if you're getting enough fats, where the recommendations for a low point on fat intake would be 0.3 times your body weight, okay? So if you are 100 pounds and you're trying to figure out how much fat you need, that's about 33 grams per day. on average, roughly. So you can go now a little bit above that, a little bit below that. It's probably fine. Probably not going to risk, any hormonal issues or, gaining weight or anything like that. Considering the fact that your calories are controlled, okay, you know how much you're consuming and you're consuming enough for your goal. You can eat a little bit less than that, a little bit more than that. You're probably going to be just fine. But that's kind of a good baseline example, because the more body mass that you have, typically the more of each macronutrient you need. And so having that bottom baseline is a good thing to establish. So say that you're eating that 33 grams of fat, but you're having to really limit your food choices, and in order to do it, you're not able to enjoy a lot of the healthy foods that you like because you're trying to keep your fats low. So now you're putting yourself in a position to not be adherent to your diet because of the fact you're eating too low fats. You probably want to boost your fats up. Or if you're trying to diet and you weigh 100 pounds, but you're getting in, 90 grams of fat per day because of your food choices, it's going to make it really hard to get your calories down when you're getting so many calories from fats. Because again, we talked about in the overview episode, part 1, that for every gram of fat, there's 9 calories, okay? So you can imagine how quickly you can add up calories from fat. So for example, 5 grams of fat is 45 calories, okay? So only 5 grams, like that's how many calories you're getting. So it's very easy to overeat calories when fats are higher, and it really lowers your food selection because typically when you add fats, you're not actually adding food volume. So like, if you're using butter, you're adding fats. If you're using oils, you're adding fats. And that's not going to help you feel any fuller because you're eating less food. So this is why I like to keep, this is my personal journey. I'm not telling you guys what you should do, but my personal journey, I like to keep my fats on the lower end because this allows me more volume of food available to eat, which helps me be more compliant to my diet, because if I'm having to eat less food, I'm going to be more hungry, I'm going to be more food focused. So it allows me to eat more food. I can still make it tasty with my seasonings and all that. Plus, I really like carbs, so that's not a problem there. But also, it makes it a lot easier to control my overall calorie intake because I'm not losing a bunch of calories to liquids and oils and things like that. It's kind of like people who, they drink like regular soda, they drink like a lot of regular sweet tea or regular milk, things like that. And they're getting in a ton of sugar and aka a ton of carbohydrates, aka a ton of calories from these liquid sources. But these liquid sources aren't helping them with their hunger or helping them feel full. They end up losing a ton of their daily calorie intake to these caloric drinks. And this is why I always guide my clients away from caloric drinks if possible and try to get the majority, if not all, of your calories from food, because then you get to eat more food, you feel fuller longer, you feel better, your energy is a little bit more regulated. It's all good things that come from that. And we have so many different low calorie diet options for liquids, sugar-free, artificial sweeteners. They're not bad for you, by the way, although people claim they are. They're not. Again, another subject for another day. But there's so many different ways that we can still enjoy the drinks that we like without having the calories added with it. And so we can put all those calories towards our food, which again helps us stay full longer, helps us feel better, have more energy, all that good stuff. So it's the same thing with fats, guys. If you are using a bunch of butter or oils in your cooking, or you're eating at places that use a lot of oil, this is an easy way to really reduce your caloric intake, which is going to help you in your diet. Because if you're trying to diet and lose body fat, you're going to have to be in a calorie deficit, meaning you're eating less calories than your body's burning. And if you're getting a bunch of calories from fats, again, one, you can't eat very much food, which is going to make dieting harder, especially, in the extended time period. And, you're losing a lot of potential food volume to those easy calories that aren't actually doing anything for you. So this is a good place to look if you're trying to find the easiest way to be able to eat more food without feeling as restricted, and still hit your goals, okay? Because that's why we're here, is we want to hit our goals, all right? So I hope this information has been helpful for you too, you guys. We're going to follow up on this series with some more information that ties into this. It's just not directly macro related, so I'm going to do an episode over micronutrients, so covering all of our vitamins and minerals, where you can get these from. So that's going to be really cool to see, because a lot of people think that you have to use supplementation, you have to take a multivitamin, you have to take fish oil, you have to take all these things to have good health, and you don't. You'd be much better off getting it from food, because one, it's a much purer version of it. Two, most nutrients are designed to be ate with other nutrients for absorption and just for optimization. So it's always better to get things from a whole food source. Plus, again, if you're getting your nutrients from whole foods, you're able to eat more food volume, because a lot of them comes from fruits and vegetables, which are very filling, very satiating because of the amount of fiber, which helps with digestion and all that as well. So lots of extra benefits by consuming foods that are higher in these micronutrients, and we're covering all of our bases for our health, and we're not having to spend a bunch of money on supplementation when we're already buying food just to survive as it is. So we might as well choose foods that are going to provide you the nutrients you need. And then we'll do an episode that covers sleep, so the importance of sleep optimization, some ways that you can go about that, some ways that you can improve your sleep quality without having to necessarily improve your duration of sleep. So that's going to be a really good one. And then we'll have a bunch of different educational episodes. Obviously, we're not going to stop anytime soon, but this will conclude our 4-point series on Let's Talk Macro. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you didn't catch any of the previous episodes, guys, go back, listen to those. Even if you're starting with this one, that's totally fine. Go back and listen to the other ones, because we want to get the full picture to have a really good, clear understanding. And always, guys, I'm always open for questions. You can reach out to me on social media or however. And if you have any questions on any of this, I'd love to go into, deeper dialogue with you, help you, do what I can, guys, because I'm here to serve. That's what we do. All right, guys. So whatever you do with this information, make sure you do something good for yourself, something good for your health, something good for those you care about. And whatever you do, make sure you win on purpose. We'll talk at you next time.